You are listening to The Only Constant, a podcast where we go beyond the usual discussions in technology and business and aim to explore more than explain. Join me for engaging discussions with a diverse range of global thought leaders as we seek to uncover new perspectives and insights in a free-flowing conversation. My guest today is Ben Torben-Nielsen, and I am your host, Lasse Rindom. Hi, Ben, and welcome to The Only Constant. I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome you today to this podcast, and I've been looking forward to doing this episode for a long time now. So thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to our conversation as well.
So, Ben, do companies need an AI strategy? Really?
I think yes. And there's, of course, like a lot of skepticism around AI strategy lately. So maybe instead of answering, and I know normally you cannot answer a question with another question, but let me ask you a few questions. Is it needed for a company to decide which business use cases they're going to work on with AI?
I would tend to actually think, so you're straight out of nothing here. You're asking me a question, Ben. That's quite okay. Thank
It's
you very
cheating.
much. Just turning the tables immediately. No, but I think that that's a double. You need to answer that in two ways, right? So first of all, yes, of course, they need to know what they want to do when they implement something. That makes sense, right? You need to know what you want to do. But on the other hand, I think with what's going on right now, what we're seeing in the AI field and how it's being adopted and sub-optimized for uses by multiple app vendors and everything, I think people need more to be prepared for the future than actually prepare themselves with their current application landscapes, their people, the processes, their data, more than actually necessarily implement a single, narrow focused use case right now. So
Yeah.
the use case is more explorative. See how does it work, right? So I don't know. I don't think they need to necessarily.
Fair enough, because I think that you kind of give your own answer on do you need an AI strategy, but the thing is indeed, like, if you do something with AI, you probably need to, I mean, the whole LinkedIn is about this lately, about selecting your business case, because you need to make a business case, you need to get a return on investment. So in some way you will have to select whatever business case at the point that you decide you will need it. Okay, that's good. Then probably you also, if you have a large company, you probably also need to decide on what your infrastructure is, because, and I will this time answer the question for you. That's maybe less cheating from like my side, but as a company, you probably have to decide on what infrastructure that you need to have, because it cannot be that if you have different tech infrastructures in every part of the organization, then of course you cannot accelerate because you will not be able to reuse it. The same thing happens essentially with data. And I think this is coming very close to your ideas as well that I don't fully know. So please let me know if I summarize it wrong. But you probably need to have some kind of modernized backbone with some decisions about what you're going to do with the data so that different parts of the organization can access your data. Yeah, and that they can reuse the data. Okay, so yes. And then probably you also want to have some kind of policies on what is the allowed usage of AI applications. And it might be indeed that different part of your organization have like slightly different risks there, because you might be talking about something that deals with internal R&D, or it is something that's customer facing. So of course you have different risks. But for a similar situation, you don't want to have the different groups have a different risk assessment, because this I've seen in several companies. This is really one of the limiting factors. If you want to go beyond a POC, you have built a POC, and then turns out that we absolutely cannot scale because it's like violating 15 of our internal policies. So kind of what I'm trying to say here is that if you have to decide on a lot of these things, on what you are going to do, this is a plan. It's a plan with some decisions that you make for your entire company. And how you twist it or turn it, such a plan is normally called a strategy, because it's about deciding what you're going to do and also crucially deciding what you're not going to do. So kind of with these few very simple questions that probably not that many people will disagree, you come to the conclusion that yes, you do need a AI strategy.
Yeah, but yes, but you're right. You need to have a plan for how you're going to manage these things. But I would say, it's more about having a an aggressive modernization strategy, right? You have something in your core that you need to move, and then AI is because I still think the AI needs to be applied to some kind of future imagined state, a future target operating model you want to get to, or needs to be tied to some challenges that you're seeing. And I want the strategy always to be focused on challenges or opportunities and not just on technology, because I think that that's a flat way of looking at it, and it seems wrong for the CEOs to go around like generals saying we just need more bazookas and then we'll win the war. If we have 100,000 bazookas, we'll win, right? You don't win by doing that. You win by analyzing.
But you have to decide indeed also which war you want to engage in. If you use the same,
and AI is not a war, is it?
Analogy, no, exactly. But it's like, okay, war is like a very bad thing, and also the bazookas is maybe not the best one here. But indeed, which solutions do you want to create? And then indeed, how do we get there? So and honestly, I've seen this, and by the way, it can be very successful as well. What I've seen quite a few times is that if you want to, because a lot of this modernization of the core is about data. I assume that you are talking a lot about data, but nobody gets excited about data. Yeah, I mean, I'm very sorry. IT is probably excited about data, but people are very excited about doing AI, despite the fact that they not necessarily know all the implications of AI, and that in most cases, in a lot of cases, it also uses a lot of data. So kind of the AI strategy would be kind of a similar thing to like your plan, but you use AI as a catalyst to get your data in order. And I've seen that this actually works, because all of a sudden it's like, okay, we can decrease cost, we can speed up the processes, we can improve the quality, whatever is important for like your business, because these can be very different. We can actually do this. We can deliver this with this magical thing called AI. And for this to happen, you just have to make sure that I can access this part of your data. And this is how I would like to see it. This seems to be working. I'm not saying that's working every time, but it seems to be working. So
you're basically assuming the mistake that everyone's talking AI, and then saying, okay, how can I just use AI to say all the things that I'm saying, basically? So you're pushing the same agenda, right? And
I'm a Trojan horse.
But you're exactly Trojan horse, exactly. So but the point, but my fear is just that if you go around saying people need AI strategies, a lot of companies will do like they did with RPA and with a lot of others who say, okay, let's build 2 or 3 use cases here and say we did it, right? And that's then move on to all the things we used to do, right?
Yeah.
And then not even look at not look at their legacy, not look at the problems they already knew they had, but were very costly to change. So AI becomes just this sort of now we're modern, but we're not modern, right? I think what did Jesus call it? White coffins with rotting bones, right?
That's very interesting to like put religion into it again, which I'm not going to answer to, but probably it's true. But I think that indeed also what is missing is aspiration and ambition. If you make our AI, if you call a sheet of paper, we are going to do 2 use cases, our AI strategy, well, obviously it's not a AI strategy, and you're lacking all the ambition. Because as you said, indeed, it's always you are in a current state and you want to get into a future state. And this future state normally is hallmarked by more value, whatever value is. Yeah, happier people, better bottom line, better top line, higher quality, whatever. Yeah, but you want to go to like a higher value state, and so this is our strategy. It's not like we are going to do 2 use cases. To me, it's an indication of a complete lack of understanding and of ambition. And so maybe this is actually where this confusion comes from.
So what should companies actually do right now? Should they find a use case and implement that, Ben, or should they focus on something completely else if they go do AI? What would you say? You of course should say, oh, that depends on the company, blah blah situation. But you have something you're always looking for when you come to a company. You say, okay, let's first ask you these 5 questions, right? So what should they actually do? Should they go for a use case? Should they train their people? What's the point? What's the thing they need to do?
I'm an ex-scientist, so my answer is going to start with it depends. Because if I would say this is what you have to do, then I would be a motivational speaker that doesn't know anything about AI. Yeah, and that's not my cup of tea. So it depends, Lasse. It depends very strongly on, I think, mainly on the size of the company. So also my background is in like very large multinationals. I've worked for like one of the largest companies by market cap in Europe. And then a lot of things are about orchestration as well. So obviously it's very good for an organization to experiment with AI, and then experimenting with AI can be there for leveling up the skills or the mindset of people to actually work with data and also trust it. So this is good. But ultimately, if you're a very big organization, you need to have, in some way or the other, some sort of orchestration. Because otherwise, what you're going to have is essentially, I mean, in all the different parts of your organization, so in your R&D, in your development, in your production, in your commercial and your group functions, then you're going to reinvent the wheel 5 times over. And so one of the things about AI, and I think this is also one of the answers to your question about why do we need an AI strategy, is that AI is different in at least 2 respects that are relevant here. First of all, it applies to your whole value chain. Before, a lot of technologies were very specific for one part of your value chain. For example, we can produce something much better or like quicker. And now it's like, okay, but this thing is not just about the production, it's about like the whole value chain. So this is one of the differences. And it also goes much quicker. The evolution of AI. I mean, I've been in this field for roughly 20 years, and I see indeed a lot of enablers. But now, in the last few years, it has really taken up, and it's been popularized essentially. So, if you do this in a siloed fashion, like what most multinationals will do, it will simply not scale. You are not ready. You have not modernized your core, to like use your terminology. You are not ready to respond quickly enough. And if you are working, especially in like low margin industries or something, other companies will do it, and you will be losing your
But
competitive
isn't this
edge
also
very quickly.
underwhelming when you speak to them, right? Because what you do here is, you go, you talk about silos, right? And if you talk about silos, everyone can agree that they have silos. I don't think I've talked to anyone who doesn't say, "Oh yeah, the silos," right? But the problem is that changing that means you have to change your whole organizational setup and also your C-level responsibilities and portfolios and everything.
Yes.
And that's not, And if you said you want to, so you come there and you speak about AI, right? You start off with AI, and then you say, "Oh, you need to change your roles and everything you do," right? And then don't you quickly fall into this? That it's just like, "Hey, just tell me practically what I should do." Give me a clear answer, Ben.
That's true, but Lasse, I have the impression you are a little bit schizophrenic here, because essentially everything that you say is in favor of having a AI strategy, but in some way you don't want to call the AI strategy, because indeed
No, but I
all
don't
of
want to call. I don't want to make AI the
exactly.
business strategy. AI can
It's
be a
not.
business
It's
strategy
not.
if
It's
you're.
not a business strategy. That's the whole point. But essentially, what you say, indeed, you will have to look at the technology. But we agree, the technology is just like a small bit, because that's kind of our commodity now. You can go to any of the hyperscales and you buy AI, kind of. But then, indeed, all say that this is 10 to 30% of the transformation. Then the other 90 or 70 to 90% is kind of your business process re-engineering, and especially your people. Which
Okay,
is
but let me
kind of the
change it
same.
then, Ben. Where does this belong? Right. Okay. Good. I buy it. Okay. With AI strategy, there's different levels of core granularity of where you could have a strategy. Everyone has a strategy to some extent for what they do. So
Yes.
let's change it. Where does it belong? Is it
Where
this?
does it
Is this
belong?
board? Is this boardroom thing AI strategy, or is this
Enterprise-wide.
Is this CEO strategy? Is it CFO? Is it CIO? Is it head of data?
Well, so recently there was a paper by some professors of IMD. Do you need a CIO, a chief AI officer? And the answer was, in true academic fashion, it depends, Lasse. So I'm very sorry, but what I do know for sure, and here because I've seen it. So if you have a company, yeah, simply speaking, a company gets some materials in. You do a lot of things with it. So you might do some research, you development, you produce something, and at the outcome you have something that is of like higher value. Okay, cool. And so each of these silos, each of these stations have some kind of a strategy of like how to do their part of the job better. But of course, that is not a business strategy, because the business strategy tells you overarching around this whole system. in which direction people should be thinking. For example, a business strategy might be, we want to go into the Chinese market. I'm just making up something. It might be we go to the Chinese market. We don't know exactly how, but we have seen that there are many very good opportunities. And this is indeed like overarching. And then all of these things are like orchestrated. All these different functions and like silos are orchestrated by this business strategy, by this true vision. Okay, we have to do something like this, because otherwise it might be that your R&D is going left and your production is right. So if we look at it, and this was a little bit of a long setting of the scene of like how large companies work. But if you look at it this way, the only place where AI and an AI strategy should work is indeed enterprise-wide, because otherwise you have indeed, again, all kind of per function. You have different
you're not saying that AI strategy should be like, we want to enter the Chinese market.
No, that's
we want to have AI. But that's the problem, is that people are putting it up there, right? That's where it annoys me. So people hear that you need an AI strategy, and suddenly you have boardrooms telling CEOs, you need to have 4 AI projects this year, or you need to do, putting a number on it, because they don't understand what this is all about, right? This is not a business strategy, but it's been treated as a business strategy. That's why I spoke to Scott Newton on my podcast. I asked him, can AI even be a strategy if you're not a tech company? And he said no. So there you have it, Ben. Scott wins. No.
Scott says something. Okay, I say something else. Fine.
Yeah, I know.
Even more, we had this discussion well,
but
and
we agreed
that we're not agreeing. But indeed, we're kind of agreeing. So, Lasse, let me give you analogy here as well, because this is a question that I get very often, and I like it that you bring it up, because probably you get this question very often as well. Because indeed, if you talk to like the higher echelons of a company where this should be indeed taking place, then it's often not very clear what are the deliverables of the of an AI strategy, and also how does it interact, or even worse, how does it interfere with the business strategy? And my answer would be no. There's no interference. And of course, by the way, if we just go back 1 second to this just very high level overview of a company. So you have things coming in, you have something that goes out with like higher value. Each of these silos, each of these things have a strategy. So obviously there's one overarching strategy, but then still the board is not going to say exactly what your strategy should be to produce some goods quicker or like better. I mean, obviously not. So what they do is they set the goals, the big aspiration, and then all of the other places fill in their strategy. So I don't think like there's one business strategy. Yes, there's one aspiration, one set of goals, but then of course this will translate. Now with an AI strategy, suppose that our airline has a strategy, has a business strategy. So the airline can decide, okay, we are going to fly. So essentially, the idea of the airline is we are going to make money for shareholders. That's kind of the definition of a company. Or if you want to put it like slightly better, we are going to create value for like people because they can go somewhere. Okay, cool. So we are going to do this. This airline then builds a business strategy, hopefully based on like data, and they say like, okay, these are the destinations that we want to fly to. This is the frequency that we want to fly there. This is the kind of plane that we are going to use. And so this is your business strategy. This says, how am I going to make the most value? How am I going to create value with the resources that I have? And then it's very interesting because you cannot just fly planes. So then you have like essentially the whole aviation authority around it. Who is saying, okay, this is the maximum size of your airplanes. This is how you can load them. You cannot put like 1,000 people into one Boeing because that is not safe anymore. And so kind of this whole aviation authority, they put some rules in place so that you can operate your business in a safe and responsible way. And kind of, so obviously the aviation authorities have nothing to say whatsoever about your business strategy as an airline, but they put some checks and balances in place that you can actually do it, because also you can say, Ben, I've seen that on this route I can have planes of like 10,000 people at once because this is always fully booked. So I'm going to build a plane with like 10,000 people. It's like 300 meters long. It has like 4 decks. We're going to do this. it's not going to fly, Lasse. Well, it's literally not going to fly, but it's not going to work out because you will not be able to take off anywhere, and you're not going to be able to like land anywhere. You are not going to be allowed to like fly over any territory. So kind of this is how I see the AI strategy, as this set of enablers that allows your business strategy to thrive, but you're not interfering whatsoever with the business objectives.
Yeah, so building the airport and making sure, but I get that, right? If you need AI and if you want to do AI, of course, this is what we need to do, right? My only point is, is this really something, does it make sense for, CEOs to going around saying, oh, we need AI. I want AI now. Let's have an AI strategy. I spoke to some company, some consultancy firm, and they gave me an AI strategy. And it's, I just think that this becomes a weird discussion, right? I don't think it fits there. I don't think it's fit because it starts taking time from the business strategy, right? Instead we're talking about a hype technology, right? And from what I hear from you, you sort of agree to that.
To what?
That it is taking, it should not be a business strategy. It should not be something that you take the time from there. It should be something where someone sets a business strategy, and then in the different the silos or departments below that, you make an AI strategy, figure out how it should work, right?
I'm not completely sure that I agree here, because it is, if you look at the analogy as well, it's the aviation authority that kind of enables the business strategy as well. And I have the impression that we are going to a phase where every company will have to adopt AI to a lesser or
Yeah, but don't
to
they
like
first need
more or
to
like
adopt?
less.
Don't they need to have a cloud strategy first, right? So is CEOs going around saying it's cloud strategy? No, they don't.
No,
That's
but
the
you need to
CIO,
have,
maybe the CFO at most, right?
exactly. But the thing is, indeed, the whole vision of what to do with the company and how to generate value is something that's typically in like C-suite. Yeah, and
Mm,
what I see, and again, I think I have the impression there's more like a semantic discussion about like the words,
mm.
like wordsmithing, because I have the impression that we both go in the same direction. It's just that you refuse to like call it AI strategy, and I think, yeah, I mean, um, if it has all the ingredients of an AI strategy, then why not
Yeah,
call
but
it an AI
I won't.
strategy?
Yeah, but I actually said I won't. I don't. I'm not gonna. And you're right. We're word splitting to some extent. I'm not gonna reject saying this is an AI strategy. I just think that the problem is the way it has been put as something that should be on the boardroom level agenda. It should be on the business strategy agenda, and that's why I think that you're completely overdoing it. This is hype on overdrive, and that's
Well,
why I'm saying don't do that.
I,
Expect that it can
I,
solve your problems.
I don't think so, because I've seen the issues as well when there is no clear guidance, because a lot of people in the organization are kind of waiting for this clear guidance of, indeed, because they have to make decisions. They have to make decisions in order to like do anything. They have to make
Mm,
a decision about how are they going to organize the data, how are they going to organize their compute. And this is something, if you want to scale, if I mean, if you want to accelerate, if you want to even just stay nimble enough to respond to the rate of change in the field of AI, but also probably indeed in the ways that we are working, you'll have to orchestrate this a little bit. So where then are these decisions, these orchestrated decisions being made? Because it's not just the technology, but indeed, if you also then, if you have policies, if you have acceptable use, and the
mm.
acceptable use is completely different in like different parts of the organization. Mind you, I've seen this in like several examples where there were like different, say, um, security levels or like data privacy levels of different chatbots in the same organization. Then of course, if you're a compliance officer, you might say, yeah, but there are different levels of like risk in different parts of the organization. But what I saw in the organization was huge confusion, and
But this
confusion is
way,
not good.
AI becomes a challenge, right? A business challenge that needs to become a business strategy, and then it's not it's not an opportunity in itself, right? But it becomes a challenge. Something you say, people will do this, and it will be a huge risk to us that they will do it maybe wrong, right? Isn't that sort of what you're saying then?
Exactly, but yes, Absolutely. But I find the dynamics very interesting because we are going from very skeptical about AI strategy to like, no, actually, your AI strategy should be your business strategy. Again, these are not my words. Yeah. I think
No, no,
it's
no,
like
no, no.
mainly
But I think,
on the
but if
enabling
it is,
side. But
if this podcast is not exploring, right, and then it makes sense, right, to if, but no, but I think that the problem is that it's not just the focus is not the business strategy focus. Then it's not necessarily the opportunity, but the challenge of this happening and how you're going to approach that. And that
yes.
also means it's not just about building a chatbot in the corner and this will transform us, but actually preparing yourself for the impact of AI
Yeah.
that will hit you everywhere, right?
Yeah. No. Again, I think we by and large agree. It's just indeed like how, and maybe also one of the things. Why is it that some people from the strategy field are against it, or like highly experienced business leaders? And I have the impression because sometimes it's just not enough knowledge, and then knowledge is not just technical. It's absolutely not technical knowledge. I mean, business leaders like the CEO doesn't need to know anything about how a transformer architecture works. Nada. I mean, that
Mm.
is completely irrelevant. But you kind of have to answer three questions that you need to, because ultimately the board and the executive committee, they make the decisions. Yeah. And so if you make decisions, it's best to be at least slightly informed about what is going on. So what can AI do? Yeah. What is
Yeah.
AI
So
and
yeah.
what
So
can
you
it
keep
do?
going around saying you need to know, but
What
you don't need to know. We
no
keep
no
on.
no it's like at a very specific level. I mean, you if you want to make these decisions, and they are the decision makers ultimately.
So
So if you,
Ben.
yeah,
Okay, Ben. What can AI do?
many things. It depends, Lasse. It depends, Lasse. No, but even there, Lasse. And I think, and again, it's like it's like one of these frustrations that I have as well. So because also what you see is mainly people are talking about operational excellence. Yeah, and like
Mm.
operational excellence is of course one of these buckets. But honestly, what does operational excellence mean? Yeah, operational excellence if you are a pharma company that develops new drugs, it's a high margin business. Yeah, operational excellence in like saving a little bit of money here and there. Okay, it's cool. It's like interesting and it's good, of course. But the real thing that's operational excellence is speed. Because the only thing that you want to be is the first to market or the first to a patent. Yeah, so it
Mm.
might be that you are developing all the way, because normally a drug, it takes you 10 to 12 years to develop between identifying a target and getting it onto the market. That's very long, yeah?
Mm. Yeah.
And the real cost is around 4 to 6 billion. It's very expensive, yeah? So what you want to make sure is that you are the first one on the market or the first one that has the patent. Yeah, so if you find out after 10 years of like pumping in money that you're not the first one, this is a huge sunk cost at that moment. So this is just to say, I mean, I cannot give like one answer on like what can AI do, but AI can do like operational excellence, and that's good. And operational excellence can be cost saving if
I
you are in
think
a
you
low
in our
margin.
prep talk. I think in our prep talk you gave a very good quote. What was it? Uh, um,
Yes, I know which one you're meaning, and I think that this is also very relevant for like this discussion. It was something that I heard at like IMD, by the way. It was the president of IMD that gave this at a symposium. That IMD is like very eager to like adopt AI, and the thing is, we don't know what the future holds because
mm.
we nobody can look into the future. And he formulated it like this, and I will paraphrase it slightly worse than like he did, but it was, at IMD we are figuring out tentative answers to burning questions, because if the answer is completely clear, then it's probably not an important question anymore. And I find this super interesting as well, because this is what we are doing, because at this moment we are not only building the plane while flying it, but we are also building like the landing stripes,
Yeah.
the
So
aviation
if the answer is too
authority.
clear, you're basically too late, right, to the market.
It's it's too late. And this is actually also again related to like strategy. Sometimes you are making the right bet, and sometimes you don't. That's also fine.
So that is actually, that would be your answer also to what can AI do. You said they need to know what AI can do, right? Oh, AI can do, it depends, and it's a tentative answer, dear
It's
CEO,
a
right?
it's a tentative answer, but I still, and it might be not the nice thing, but again, this is helping the ways of thinking about it, because quite often you get this very not nuanced view. If I would be a motivational speaker, okay, Lasse, what can AI do? AI can reduce your operational cost by 50%. Okay, it would be complete bollocks. It might be that you buy it
Yeah.
because it's like sounds good. But again, here the question is,
that's not talking about what AI can do. That's just saying some weird business case.
exactly.
That you
You just
is,
have to think about it like a little bit more. And one thing that works with one industry doesn't work with another industry. If you are in like high margin, low margin, if you have a company of like 10 people, probably ChatGPT is even a good strategy.
But that
messaging
else. That messaging is everywhere, and that's what has caused boardrooms to talk about this. Is all these big reports from all the biggest research firms saying $15 trillion
trillion
blah blah,
indeed.
trillion. It keeps going bigger and bigger and bigger. And
how many
then
zeros has it?
So that is a significant business case. We need to what are we doing with this, dear CIO, right? And it's like, whoa, I tried ChatGPT, I didn't really hallucinate it, but I think okay, I need to just move us to some other focus here, right, Ben? Because I think it's interesting that that I have you on the podcast. I haven't introduced you. I never introduce people, because people, you can just look them up, so people can look you up on LinkedIn, right, or wherever you are, right? And the point here is that you've been working with AI for like 20 years or something. You even have a PhD in it, and some of your friends started working with Hinton and other people, right? You've really been around. You didn't do that for some weird reason, right? Because now it's clear, and then it's too late, right? That's the point. But that you should have. But what I'm getting at here is,
rub it in, Lasse.
What? Yeah, I rub it in all the time, right? You're just sitting there, being consultant. Sad for you. Anyway, but my point is, if you don't have a clear answer on what AI can do, who will have that clear answer, Ben? And
well,
does Sam Altman have it? And, when he says this will be, AGI, everyone will, does he have a clear answer? He's giving it, but can he?
I'm not going to talk about Sam Altman, but indeed, I love the question. And again, it's like such a difficult question, because indeed, can you give some guidance? Yes, I can. And I think I can do it better than like other people. I mean, this is of course very humble. So thank you for like making me say this on like camera. Greatly appreciated, Lasse. But the thing is, indeed, if you have experience, you have seen things, and it is not coming out of a complete void, like this whole generative AI thing. And I think that this is very important to notice. Okay, one example. In I think it was 2012 that deep learning became popular with with convolutional neural networks, and so all of a sudden your computer could recognize images, and so of course all of a sudden on like Facebook, it was still called Facebook at that point in time, it was amazing because you could recognize cats automatically on in like pictures, which is of course great. But then if you see like, okay, this is fun. But at what point do we get actually really business applications? So I'm coming from the field of clinical decision support algorithms and like clinical algorithms, say on like imaging. I have a few patents in that space as well. And what you see is roughly 10 years later, you have an enormous amount of papers that are saying this algorithm diagnoses radiology images better than a radiologist. This algorithm diagnoses better than pathology images than a pathologist. You have like literally thousands and thousands, like almost every day you will find at least 10 of those papers. Well, contrast this. So it's good to realize that this took 10 years roughly, or at least 8 years that it took between we can recognize a cat until we can do something meaningful with like radiology or pathology images, or like any biomedical images. But then if you look last year, I actually checked it. How many algorithms were FDA approved? And so the FDA is the authority in the US that can say that something can be used for like medical purposes, yes or no. How many of these algorithms are actually approved at this moment? And end of last year, this was roughly 600. And then you might say like 600, that's very much. No, 600 is absolutely not much. If you just do like a quick PubMed search on like deep learning radiology, deep learning pathology, deep learning biomedical images, you will probably have something like a few tens to like maybe even like 100,000 of papers right now. So it's very hard to really translate the state of the art into business applications as well. And so this kind of cat moment, I can recognize cat images, is probably what we are going through right now with generative AI. So very long story short, you are starting to recognize some things that are happening. You also understand it a little bit better what is happening, and you can put it into more perspective. Because if you started with, say, generative AI 2 years ago, and you think that generative AI is AI, well, then you can probably not give good advice. I mean, Lasse, I will throw it in, and a lot of people think this is very controversial, but it's actually not. A lot of AI does not need data, and it's true. Yeah, if you look at what artificial intelligence is, and if you look at the main artificial intelligence handbooks, essentially like the first 500 pages out of like 1,000 pages of these handbooks is about all kind of things like logic, like reasoning, like formal reasoning. It's about search. It's like about optimization algorithms. And what do you think that, for example, your supply chain department is running on all this kind of optimization like search algorithms? Because essentially this is search under constraints. We need to produce something. We cannot have too much of it. We cannot have too little of it. We have thousands of like vendors selling us raw stuff. This is AI as well. And this AI does not use any data. And I think that this realization already, because most people, of course, don't know this, is something that's very useful, because a lot of people tend to say AI, and what they actually mean is Gen AI. And then it's like, wait, hold on a minute. Most value at this moment, I think, comes from the traditional logic-based AI and say deep learning for image recognition. This is where the value is being made in, say, manufacturing and things. And if you don't know this, what are you going to say?
But that makes that makes complete sense, and that's also when you can just say the transparency or the explainability of the model, then it's easy to put into production also to some extent, right? When will it fail? And that's the problem with Gen AI. You can't really say where it got it from and how sure it is of its answer. It's just blah blah blah, right? So that gives some other putting into production problems. But I also think there's interesting. You said a couple of interesting things here. I think also what you said about the cat image, and we're still now only 600 in production or approved. That also means we're still in the cat moment. But will we say that in 10 years as well, Ben? That we're still in the cat moment. AI is coming. Will it be this eternal? It is. It is coming. It is. What are we doing?
Well,
Winter's coming. Is this? What are we going on? What's going on here, Ben?
Well, obviously, nobody can look into the future.
It's like fusion energy, right? We have something that looks like it, but it's coming in 30 years.
No, but a lot of things, I mean, you can simply imagine already. It does do a lot of things. It can do a lot of things with, and it's not just, by the way, this Gen AI. It's like the whole wave of, we have access to far more data than we ever had access before. We have far more compute than before, and we have very powerful algorithms, because these three you will need in like some way. And some of these algorithms are like Gen AI, but a lot of them are not. And so there is value to be generated with a lot of these things. I mean, simple things like, if you're dealing with customers, your customers much better, much more on a personal basis. So if you know your customers better, you can make better products as well. You can talk to them at like better levels. So all of these things are like, maybe this is not like the moonshot. All of a sudden, okay, we have like a company that doesn't have workers anymore. I mean, hopefully that's, by the way, not going to happen anyway. But it's all these small increases, but now these small increases are getting bigger increases, and they're happening more rapidly. And so this is also why I would say that there's also some sense of urgency. Of course, you should not all of a sudden all start making your own LLMs, but probably you do have to adopt AI in like certain ways. for example, if you are a big multinational company, and you are selling in all kind of markets, and you are selling this, say, in like 80 different countries. Probably you have 80 different languages, and so a lot of these people are not native English speakers, but the lingua franca of some of these large companies is English. How much time can you save, or can you already make the communication better, not only by just writing better emails, but also actually getting the message across? So it's not about I can click and I can translate it, but actually I can get my message across much better as well. In like big multinationals, this is a major thing. You have to plan it carefully, because of course, if you just save 10 minutes or like 30 minutes in a day, you're not going to do anything else with it. So you have to orchestrate this a little bit as well. But you see that there are a lot of examples where it's already happening.
Yeah, it is. It's just what you said, right? That there's this people are waiting for it to become even better all the time. There are things we can do with it, but it always becomes this sub-optimization of things. It becomes a little bit process excellence, right, or something. It becomes something.
But like Lasse, can I throw in something which is also more controversial, and I think that at least opens the way for some.
By the way, the thing you said about data, Peter Gustav also said that, right? He also said that we for Gen AI we don't really need data. We just have to train it. To train it, but when you're using it, I don't need. If I get 1 million records, right? I don't know how to put that into my Gen AI project. I need instructions. I need to know what you want to do. Same thing. You need to know the algorithm, right? You need to know what's the logic this model should take. Here's 2 million rows of data. Can you use that for my chatbot? No, please don't give that to me.
I absolutely love this, because indeed I have the impression quite often, indeed lately, when I talk about AI, it's some kind of a knee-jerk reaction from the decision makers, but we need to make our data first. And then it's like, well, I think there's major benefit of like doing your data, this modernization of your core. But indeed, if you do inference with like Gen AI, translating of like emails, what we just mentioned as like something that could be very valuable, how much data do I need? Zero, nada, nothing.
But what I need, what would
very good example. Thank you for like bringing it up.
No, but yeah, that's right. But I would still need it at some point to pick up the truth, right? So if you can't say what's the truth in your data and you don't have access to it readily, then you will in a couple of years have a really big problem, because that's where we're going to get the big transformation stuff. Right now, you're putting in something that can chat, I'll help you, blah blah blah, and the raw chatbot functional, LLM functional, just need instructions. But to work with truth at some point, you'll need to be able for the chatbot to grab a hold of truth, right? Well, and if you don't know what the truth is.
I'm also not going to talk about the truth, because I think that's also one of these difficult concepts. But I want to pick in on like one thing that you said earlier.
You think?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm not going to talk about the truth. I love that.
Highly,
it's a difficult concept. Yes, it is.
Lasse, highly overrated. Hoppa. Here you have a nice quote
from a philosophical perspective. Like mind blown now, Ben. I think that's just slightly too complex to take on this podcast. Okay, but
Lasse, so really, there's like one thing that I would like to propose, and this is also one of these things that I feel relatively strongly about, but I'm happy to be convinced otherwise. Like this whole idea of like explainable AI. Yeah,
that's the bomb you want to throw in. Yeah.
Yes, which I think is kind of pointless indeed. So if for some reason you go to the doctor and you take a fMRI or something, functional magnetic resonance imaging. Okay, so if and say that's even done off the brain or something, then you will see all kind of colors lighting up in the shape of your brain. Very interesting. Does the doctor have any clue how these signals are generated? No. How many people in the world know how these signals are like generated? Like the physics of how oxygen interacts with magnetic rays and then reflect. Probably a few hundred of people in the world know this. Probably they're working for like Siemens, Philips, and like the big vendors of these machines. But the doctor has no clue how this thing works. And still, the doctor is using it, and the doctor is using it in a very good way, because the doctor can like diagnose or like find issues and then put you onto the right treatment. So I think that this is like different levels of like understanding. And I have the impression as well that once we are at this stage, and of course with like LLMs, it will take a little bit longer. But for example, with image recognition, we rely on a lot of image recognition already. Say if you do, if you're speeding, then the police will take a picture of your license plate, and we are relying on the fact that this works. And the thing is, we know that it works, so we don't need to have like an explainable thing anymore. Okay, on a technical level, we take these pixels, we push it through like 10,000 layers, and we get like the license plate number out. And I have the impression that with all these things, it will go there, and that this whole explainable AI concept is something very much
It's a hypercare thing.
Yes, and it's this transition, because it's
Yeah,
very
it's a
new.
hypercare term.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something you do for a short period to see if it works.
Exactly. We are afraid of it, but probably in like 10 years, once we know, just like the image recognition, we know that it works. We can prove that with 99.999% accuracy, it actually works. Okay, cool. Once we get to this level of trust of your AI, I mean, LLMs will probably not generate like exactly the same outcome every single time. But Lasse, if you go to the doctor, they will also not say exactly the same. Yeah, even if you go to the same doctor, they will do something different.
But two things here, right? So first of all,
but
next time I get a speeding ticket, I'm going to ask them for the explainability of their model. I'm sure this is actually my license plate. That's one thing. But the second thing is that
I reject the need.
I rejected this. I won't have this. It wasn't me, but it wasn't my car. It's not even. You can't say with certainty. There's no truth here. But the point is, but.
You're a fast learner. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. So, but on the other thing you said with the doctor, right, is that I also heard a podcast about this that the reason we don't put AI algorithms into HR screening processes for candidates is because then we'll have to put all of our prejudices in there as well, right? It's easier for me to say I don't have to be accountable or explainable, so I can just say I don't like Indians, I don't like women, so I'm just not going to hire them, right? And no one will ask me for. I'll just say they weren't qualified, right? But if I want the AI algorithm to make the same decision, I have to make an explainable algorithm that says no Indians, no women, and that's a big challenge as well, right? So no, we don't do that. But humans are, I think, we have the right to make mistakes. We're very fast at adopting to things. But machines don't have this right to make mistakes. I always say that they don't have human rights. We have human rights. That's my right to make a mistake and not get killed. But a machine doesn't have that. That's why we demand explainability, isn't it, Ben?
Yes, and I think it's an interesting one, because probably the discussion goes a little bit further for the explainability, or at least for the responsible AI, and then specifically about like this bias pillar. It's not even about, because it might well be that you don't have these biases, but because your data is looking into the past. And when the hiring policy might have been at that time, there were simply less women in the workforce, or there was less migrants into the workforce. So for like all kind of reasons, I mean, literally, you can come up with like 1,000 reasons. Your data might reflect indeed something, even if you don't have this bias at this moment.
Exactly.
And I think that
data is also biased.
Yes, like a big issue. But this is also, again, so the truth is overrated, and now Lasse, also data is like highly overrated, because you have to be able to use it. So for example, and I throw these things in because I kind of want to start a discussion as well, because these are the things that you normally don't hear, and you need to have like this nuanced view if you want to make decisions. Is your data that you collected over the last 10 years very valuable for what you're going to do in the next 5 years? This is a question that you have to ask yourself. Then you can even give like more context. Okay, as a company, we pivoted 3 years ago, and we built a completely different product. Well, is our data from year 10 ago to year 7, year 3 ago, is this still relevant? Well, probably not. Because we completely pivoted. We have different customers, whatnot. And so I have the impression that this is again also it's really it's this knee-jerk thing. Like, we want to do AI, and then people say, no, because we have to do our data first. But it's I think what is underlying this thought is a resistance to change, because we simply don't understand the topic enough to make decisions. So we just give like a very superficial reason.
Data becomes a whataboutism to stall.
Yes, exactly. Right? Ben, it's like good that you're talking about this AI strategy, but we need to get our data first. I mean,
I actually put that in my
I've
recent
heard it
PowerPoint.
often, Lasse.
I took it out of my recent PowerPoint as well but I had it there. Sometimes you put a lot of slides, you make a lot of slides,
Yeah.
and then you sort of. But I had that point there saying that you need to, I said modernize and all the things that automation and is also your discipline. That's what you need to do. You need to see how you can automate things and make things faster, right? But you need to have functional, relevant data as the backdrop, right? It's not just strategy. It has to be the and then I think the word relevant there is extremely important. You don't just need data. Data is not a mountain of gold; it's a mountain of crap.
Yes.
You need to
Yes.
figure out what's valuable in it.
Yes.
But I think that's one of the problems that you're also having when you go to executives today is that they will say data because for the last 10, 15, 20 years they've been told get data, get lots of data, just make sure
is
you
the
have
new
your
oil.
data.
Yes.
Data, yes, new oil. Yeah, exactly. It's gold, and now they're like, so you're saying I don't need it? No, you need the way you're thinking about data. You need the logics around it. You need to be able to work with data. So what you've done is good. It's good. It's a good basis for what you're going to do in the future, right? But the thing you have, no, that's crap.
Yes.
Get my point?
No, absolutely. And but again, this is this nuanced.
But that's because data. People have an idea that data decision, data-driven decisions means that data will by itself tell you what you have to do. But that is actually in philosophy, I think, what you call the naturalistic fallacy. That you say that you have something that is just the descriptive state, and you go from the descriptive state to the normative state, and you can't do that. You have to say, because something is like this doesn't mean that it has to be like this. You have to say, how do we want it to be? So we have to always decide, what do we want to do with it? What is we want to do now? And the thing about data is that that's how it was, right? But that's not how it should. What you just said, we never hired Indians, so that's how it should always be. We never hire Indians. No. You have to change it. Data is not the truth. Data is something that can tell you something, but you have to drive the decision yourself. You have to make the decision yourself, right?
Yes, exactly. And so this kind of nuanced view, I think that decision makers need to know, because otherwise they are going to do data integration project after data integration project, because people told them, the consultants told them that they need to pull all of the data, and then you wonder, is this indeed helping us? So then you have like a major drain in like resources and in cost. And is it really helping us? Is it contributing to achieving the goals of your business strategy? And then maybe this might be a very painful realization that it's actually not. And so, but this is the thing, you need to have this discussion at this level as well. Like, what data do we need? Because if I want to do it for a specific thing, what data do I need to support what I want to do? And not just I'm going to, because honestly, and you can see, I get a bit annoyed by this thing, because then people say, we need to get all the data, but also data is never perfect anyway. So even if you have like the most pristine, crystal clear data lake, your data is going to be incomplete.
But also you need to explain it, not explain it. That's what I meant. You need to interpret
understand it. Yeah,
you
exactly.
Need to interpret
understand
it. So
it.
Data can tell you what you've done, right? If you can interpret it the right way.
But not what you should be doing.
No, exactly. That's why you need to figure out what kind of data do I need to figure out how I can do things better in the future. And then you need to make a decision about what you want to be. But also, I'm an educated historian. I don't know how many people know. I've said that a couple of times on the podcast as well. And for me, it's always like, okay, the past is definitely something we can also discuss, right? Every generation has a new interpretation of the past as well, right? So data is not just data. Data is very much about interpretation as well.
I'm like, I mean, as a side note, Lasse, I'm very happy that I put this specific book on with the title "History Repeats Itself," a very famous quote. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So you have that book here on the background, or. Oh yeah. I can't see it actually. Awesome, but there it is. A history repeats it. Exactly,
and especially.
Exactly. What is it saying? Slava Zizek, yeah, because I posted on Zizek. No one ever posts this on LinkedIn, a Zizek quote, right? So,
and probably then like none of your speakers, but that I cannot know for sure, pulled the book up and said, okay, cool.
No. Also because this. That's why I have to say what you're showing me, because this is a
Yeah.
non-video podcast. So
Okay.
to say
Yes.
what you're
Yes.
doing. So Ben is sitting in front of a lot of books, looking very smart. I don't think he's read all of them. He's probably just at the public library, but
Image building, indeed.
exactly. So Ben, I also need to ask you, when you're with the background you have and the education and everything, is old wine, new bottles, right? Or I was seriously seeing something that could become AGI, something novel here. What's the actual novelty and what's going on right now with these new generative models, right? I want to ask you that question.
Despite the fact that apparently I casually throw out some controversial statements, I don't know. I mean, this is I'm not involved. I'm very impressed with what's going on in OpenAI lately, but it might be by the time that this podcast is being aired that it's known that I'm wrong, or that there's something new. So it's like very different, or like very difficult to like say something about it. If you, I mean, again, if you are happy for like indeed like a tentative answer to like burning questions, because I think it's a burning question and it's a very tentative and like very speculative thing. So one of the things that I noticed, and it was actually quite funny, because when OpenAI 01 was released, a lot of people were doing very negative about it, like the first day, because it was very slow and it's super expensive. Yeah. But then honestly, look, the guys at like OpenAI, they are not stupid. Yeah, I mean everything but stupid. So why is it that it's super slow and like super expensive? And then one of the things, I mean, again, but then you need to know a little bit of the technical background as well, and maybe even like a little bit of the history there. But so how can you make things very slow and very expensive? What does that mean? Probably because you need to have an enormous amount of compute that you're using, because that is the only price that like warrants that it's slow and like expensive. Okay, how can you get this? Well, we can make an enormously big model. So we have not just like 15. I mean, what is lately 1.5 trillion or something, but we have a billion trillion things, like essentially the proverbial gazillion. Yeah, so we have a very big model. But that's also not going to work, because ultimately what our model is doing, you're simply pushing through data. It goes from layer to like layer, and you generate your output. So that's probably not going to be that slow. The other thing that you can think of, it's doing this chain of thought. So what it's doing, it's automatically, you have a question or a query, and it breaks it down in like 3 or 4 different steps, and then it executes like these 3 or 4 steps. But still, this should only be like 3 or 4 times more slow then. Yeah, if you have the same model but you do 3 steps, then it should be 3 times more slow. But it was like something like 10 times slower. So one of the things that I was speculating is that, and in typical multi-agent style then, is that it's not only doing this chain of thought, but every smallest piece of information is like broken down. Just to explain, if you want to do something, if you ask LLM, what is the highest mountain in the world, then probably it is, you can break this down by yourself, but the chain of thought would be, get a list of mountains, check what the height of each mountain is, and then ultimately you give the answer, namely the mountain with the highest thing is the highest mountain. So this is probably like the reasoning. But then each of these steps, logical steps, you can break down in like smaller things. Get a list of mountains. It's probably go to the encyclopedia, go to Wikipedia, go to the scientific literature, whatnot. And so what I think that is happening is indeed that they are probably breaking down automatically all these questions into smaller questions automatically. And then, because that will warrant that you really take a lot of compute, and that it will take a bit of time, because essentially you break down this question into all kind of small independent queries, and then they must have found some kind of way to like aggregate them. And just to be even more controversial here, if you would compare this to what humans do, and of course people will like hate me for this, and by proxy you, Lasse, for like giving me the audience here, so sorry for that. Is essentially, you could almost call this like a stream of consciousness from literature, where you literally go from one thought
Ben, I wouldn't have expected more than
thought.
anthropomorphism from you, because you've just decided to do AI as a field of study, so you're probably a sci-fi fan anyway. But
I'm not.
You're not. Okay.
I have no sci-fi books here.
Okay. That surprising. That's actually surprising. So 20 years ago, you decided no sci-fi involved to study AI. But I think you're right. That the way we're building there, it's also the way I'm envisioning every solution we're building. It's a multi-agent setup. It's breaking it down into multiple different tasks, because then you get a higher degree of certainty about what is actually producing. Also, having it check itself and all that all the time. And that's why I thought it was nice they did it. I wasn't really surprised. I thought this is how we have to do it. It has to be, speed, quality, cost. That triangle is still valid.
Lasse, so we don't necessarily know that it's like this. I try to figure out in my network, and it seems to be that at least it's like very plausible. But of course, they are not going to say exactly what they are doing. Yeah, but I have to admit, now we are almost casually talking about this. But the day that this was released, I was excited. I was really excited, because I thought, like, wow, if this is true, then this is major. Then this is really like a major breakthrough, because all of a sudden it kind of thinks, it reasons for itself.
I said the same. This is finally they're doing what I always wanted. I wanted to reason for itself. So this will fix automation. I said finally you get something that can do it better, because now it will actually criticize itself. But the problem is that I can't control the route it takes. And that is also what a lot of people are saying. The problem with it is that it's uncontrollable. So it goes somewhere. And where will it go? Chain of thought, yeah. But
do you do mindfulness or something like this, or like meditation?
No, I don't.
That's a clear answer. But a lot of people are like doing this lately. By the way,
sometimes I do some breathing exercises or something. Okay, I play football. Good. I don't.
But so Lasse, why are people doing this? Because they have no control over their thoughts. So that makes it even more human.
But I get that. But that's not an automation. But I get all the analogies. But Ben, it's not a human, right? It can't play. It still can't play. It will still play rock paper scissors with me, even though it's a chat, right? It doesn't know what's going on, right? It's not a human, right? That's the point. It just isn't. It's a weird brain. It's not intelligence. That's not what I'm saying. It's just a different intelligence, and it is a machine.
I'm very happy that you say this, because indeed it is not that it's not intelligent. And I also, I mean, you can hear I get annoyed quite often lately. But so, I mean, one of the things is what you didn't mention is that I actually got a dual PhD in both AI and in neuroscience. Yeah. So I have some background in like neuroscience as well. And then people always seem to reason that things cannot be. So it's about artificial intelligence. And they seem to reason that the only way to achieve intelligence is by doing it exactly like how the human brain does, or the animal brain. And I find this, it's just a completely false premise. And I think that we are seeing now that
because we don't know how the human brain actually does it, right? There's some problems.
We have no clue. Too. Yeah, we have like very good educated guesses, but of course, if you ask 5 different neuroscientists what the brain is doing, you probably get.
But humans also like intelligent life in outer space who send records into outer space with Voyager and everything, right? But we can't even speak to cows. And I'm pretty sure cow is relatively intelligent to some extent, but we can't even talk to them. So how on earth are we supposed to talk to someone in outer space? Anyway,
Yes. No, but it true. We continue, Lasse.
I think actually, and that's also, I've been the intelligence question. I sort of parked that with when I asked Borhan Blily Hamelin on it on my podcast. It was out just in the beginning of August. He's a philosopher as well and worked with AI risk. And his answer to the question was simply that if it does something that's desirable to someone, it's intelligence. Period. Desirability is what determines intelligence, and every process is intelligent if it's. But that's been sort of instructive for me. So saying that if this AI is just making funny podcasts like the Notebook LM, and no one's really listening to it, right? If it's not desirable by anyone to have these artificial podcasts, then it's not intelligence. Then it's just artificial. I think I love it.
Maybe at some point you should have like this. dual podcast versions, because I would like to talk to this with this person as well, because I'm not completely sure, because the desirability implies that there is intention. And I think that we are attributing a lot of things.
No, but it
to
just
this
demands no, but not from the machine, but the problem
okay,
desirability
from
someone demanding it. It's a pure demand supply thing. Someone is saying, and that's where I always get back to and now it's the second time I mentioned something from the Bible. But God created everything in the whole universe, right? But Adam and Eve, Eve wasn't there yet. That is in this version of the Bible. I don't. This is not a sexist thing. Let's not discuss that. But Adam had to give name to everything. Right, he had to say, "Is this valuable or not? What is this? What will I call it? What will I use it for?" And to some extent, it's the same thing here, right? So if it's not desirable, it just doesn't matter. Period. Is a mosquito intelligent? Probably, but we never discuss it because we really don't like them.
Yes,
they're not desirable. But you get my point. Bad example
yes.
with the mosquito.
I would need to understand it slightly more, but what I do see is when we are discussing intelligence, is that essentially the goalposts are not being moved every day, but they're flying now. Because
but I'm saying
every day we are hitting all of these goalposts.
But
honestly,
that is because what I'm actually saying, and what Bo is actually is saying, that intelligence is a normative concept, not a descriptive concept. And I think that's exactly what you would agree to some extent as well.
Well, it of course it is normative, because also we seem to pretend that all humans are equally smart, and that apparently if we benchmark it to AI, everybody should be at least 5 Einsteins. Yeah, so this is already very normative. Yeah, but what is more about is that if you say, recently it was indeed that this OpenAI, so ChatGPT 01, that apparently according to the Norwegian Mensa, it scored something like 120 on the IQ test. So indeed, you can have 1,000 philosophical discussions about if is this Mensa test, is this really testing IQ and whatnot. Let's not do it. Everybody kind of, from a pragmatic point of view, agrees that this number means something, namely that it is relatively on the smarter side of the spectrum, because 100 by definition is the middle. And then when you say this, people are starting, but IQ is not important. It's about emotional intelligence. No. Wait a minute. Hold your horses. We are talking about artificial intelligence. We are not talking about artificial. I don't know what you want to achieve. We are talking about intelligence, and then it's very simple. We have reached this already.
But that's the problem, right? That's also the problem with the Turing test, right? You said, we have the Turing test to determine whether it's intelligent, and then it just beat it immediately, right? And people are like, we need a new Turing test.
And then you are moving the goalpost.
The bar.
Look.
But that is actually back to my point. There's something in this where we say, but it's still not really there. It doesn't feel like what I would say is valuable intelligence. So the normative of saying the value of it, that's where we're getting the problem. You can't have intelligence can't be descriptive. That is the point of what we're actually discussing right now, saying that, so if it passes the Turing test, it is intelligent. That's descriptive. Or, if it does blah, blah, blah. If it gets more than 100 on an IQ test, then it is intelligence. That's a descriptive way of measuring it. But intelligence is normative. Are you an intelligent person, Ben? Well, you could be super intelligent, but if you can't do anything reasonable in my company, no, I don't think you're intelligent. Yeah. You're thinking.
There's a statement. I'm not going to say anything. No, because and I have the impression it's also a slightly different issue here. And since this is not a technical discussion anyway, it's more some kind of a reflection. What I see is that if you're talking about AI, there are essentially 2 big camps at the moment, and I find it very weird. But there's one side that is always saying AI can do everything. So everything will be better, faster, brighter with AI, thanks to AI. Okay, swat, if you think so. And then there is another side that is very much against AI. But I have the impression that they're not necessarily against AI, but they are trying to hang on, to cling on to the fact that humans are
Klingon,
different.
You read sci-fi. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. Yeah.
that it It's also a
Humans
verb
are
in
different,
English,
yeah.
Lasse.
But I had so
So that they really cling on to this idea of humanity, and that humanity is like something different, or that we possess like this one quality, intelligence, or like whatever you want to call it, and they don't want that machines can do this. It's not so much that they are against AI. They are. I have the impression people are afraid of losing whatever
their
is
own meaning,
special
yeah.
about humanity.
Yeah,
And
the estrangement and everything, yeah.
yes, which is I think it's a helpful way of looking at it, because
It's also a
if you
generational thing, right? Because everyone's always afraid of that, right? And I had that yesterday. Also, someone I took an email I was doing with someone in a group of parents for my kid's school, and I said, okay, let's just see if AI would have an idea of how to tweak it. And some other parent in the group was like, I really don't like AI. Let's not do it with AI. Let's do it. Someone write it themselves. I don't like AI, and it always just made me think, right? That okay, but guys, you're high educated, right? So that makes sense, right? You can write. I can also write, but saying that you don't like AI is not enablement. There's a disenfranchisement. You actually enable so many people to write, dyslexic people, everything. Everyone can write with AI. So why are you against it if you look at it that way?
Yes.
You're holding on to your own privileged position. We're holding on to the old euro. We're holding on to what we used to have that worked very well, right? There's something here that also annoys me terribly, right? And I'm good at writing. I'm really good at it. I used to do poetry as well, but I'm still like, hey, but if it can help me, well, yeah, of course.
Lasse, at the risk, because we are already talking for like quite a while, but I have a very nice quote from a book that I recently read, because some of these books I actually do read. Why not? Yeah,
why not?
No, because I think it's truly amazing. So if you don't mind, if you humor me, I will just read like this quote, because I actually have it here. And it is, new ideas have drifted over to Europe from America. In short, they amounted to reducing human labor to a minimum through the use of smart systems and machines, taking advantage of every opportunity. They call this rationalizations. A machine definitely have certain advantages. If machines break down, it's due to defects, and that can be fixed. So they bought machines. Where 10 accountants used to work, now 2 accounting machines stood, operated by 2 or 3 people. Where once 100 workers were employed, now only about 40 were needed. After all, they were machines. All problems seemed to melt away like snow before the sun. All that remained was to create the mechanical man so that factories could operate without workers altogether. No, Lasse, my question is, when was this written?
1930s.
Exactly. You are a historian. Exactly.
Yes,
So
I am.
1937. But it's amazing, because if I would read you the quote and I would replace the word machines by AI, you would say this is in the book by Suleiman or something, The Common Wave. Yeah. But the funny thing about this, because indeed it's like also one of the things, because we don't know how the future will look like. And one of the fears that we also have, apart from like losing, say, our spark of humanity, is that it will take a lot of jobs. Yeah. And I think that these historical examples, that's actually, that it didn't used to be the case with like other say productivity revolutions, just call them like this. We don't know how the jobs will look like in 40 years, and probably indeed some of the roles will disappear. But literally, Lasse, when I studied AI, yeah, the term data science didn't exist yet. So people cannot see me because it's a podcast, but I have a lot of gray hair. Yeah. So at that point in time, there was no data science. There was no role data scientist. And by the way, if you look at it right now, the role data scientist also almost doesn't exist anymore. Because where 10 years ago it was one data scientist that did everything, now we have like a data modeler, we have a data engineer, we have an MLOps guy, we have DevSecOps. We have literally, if you list it, you have like a list of 15 different roles that kind of replaced, and I'm using it careful here, but that replaced the role of a data scientist. So we don't know how it's going to be in the future, but we have faced these problems before, a few times actually, in the last 2 centuries. And it always worked out relatively well. And so this is why I think that this quote is absolutely amazing. Because if you're not a historian, most people are not, you would probably have not guessed it that this could be from like 1937.
But I think actually it's I realized it because I knew I could read the dystopian focus on machines, and that must have been the 30s. So,
Yes.
but I think that
and the poverty, because neither was
yeah,
just
exactly.
after
Both things.
after
Yeah,
the
exactly.
roaring 20s, and then it was like, oh,
Yes. It would
inflation hits the
definitely.
wall.
This was definitely another quote from the 20s. That would have been wrong. But anyway,
Yeah.
the thing is that I think sometimes we forget that we do all of this for humanity, for humans. Humans are in the end what is demanding and giving value to this, like I just alluded to before. So that's why no matter how much we optimize things, there's still the human factor in the end of why we're doing it and who's going to eat it and get it, right? And if there's no humans to if everyone's unemployed, then there will be no robots because they will not be producing anything for anyone to buy. I think people need to also realize that to some extent. So there's that's my optimism, is that we have to have someone who wants to buy these things and use these things, and that's us.
Yes.
And what do we want to do? What's the value we want to give to it? I think that discussion, that is also back to what do we want to do, and that's back to the business strategy. What do we want to do? What do we want to be in the future? Right? It's what is the outcome in the end, right? I think it's not the machines that are the messy stuff here. It's the humans, right? We are the messy ones.
Yes, I agree. I'm
But
just taking
Ben,
a note here.
You're good. I'm saying clever things. So, Ben, this has been a really, really brilliant episode, and I think that when we got over our little AI strategy, what you call it, the word splitting or whatever we should call it, I think actually it was interesting because it sort of moved through it, and we sort of got around it in so many ways that it actually became clearer in the end, the point of it. And then I think also we had a really nice discussion afterwards that actually touched upon so many things, right? I want to ask you, Ben. You know all these people from back then. Can you give me some of them? Smart ones for my podcast. Someone must know someone from DeepMind or some of your friends.
Let's try.
Hinton?
I can. Hinton would
Jeffrey
be very
Hinton?
difficult. He's probably flooded by like interviews now, but maybe.
Yeah, but yeah. So that. But Ben, I have the last question to ask you. Okay, and I hope you're ready for it because it's the one that always comes in the end. So Ben, what is the only constant?
The only constant relates to the humans that we were talking about, because essentially what we are doing is we are continuously fighting entropy, because this is also the natural state of things, but then we create something to reduce the entropy, and by doing so we are introducing a lot more complexity again, and then we are fighting this thing again. So it seems to be this vicious circle, or call it progress, that we are entangled in, and that we see that we need to have some control over something. We introduce something. This introduction of something new, of technology of some sorts, make the question, the human question especially, even more difficult. And then we are trying to solve this as well. So essentially, I think the only constant is that we are continuously engaged in this progress loop where we are trying to fight entropy.
So progress, complexity, entropy, and then in a loop over and over.
The only constant.
That's a really great answer, Ben. Thank you so much for that one. And thank you for being a part of The Only Constant. It's been a true pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much, Lasse. It was great fun.
You've listened to The Only Constant, a podcast sponsored by Basico.